All right, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, look at this. If you've ever watched a video on this channel, this is a pretty big deal. This is a long extending cord for this microphone that plugs into my phone. So this is a really big deal. My girlfriend and I, it's 6:16 here in Florida. We're going to go see Project Hail Mary, the new Ryan Gosling film. And I think it's at like 8:20. So time is not on our side. I just made a 49ers video and we have that didn't do anything. We got just the helmets here. And I'm just going to pick one and talk about it because I just got this mic. I've been waiting for it all day. It arrives at 5 p.m. And it's like, oh, shoot, I got all this stuff I got to do. So I don't know what video to make because I just did a Niners video 3 minutes ago that's going to be posted on Will Upton. And this is kind of a loose kick it channel. So we've got this bucket of helmets. It's really loud. So I'm just going to put this mic over here. Just pick one. Oh, Tampa. That's interesting. Tampa's interesting because I just talked a lot of Tampa. Over on Will Upton, I got this one YouTube viewer, subscriber that's like a Bucks fan, and I live in Tampa, and he's always like, I don't make too many Bucks videos over on Will Upton. I did in the last 7 to 10 days. Somebody like, this guy's like always in my comments. I love him. Tampa is kind of in a complicated situation in the sense of, I'm going to pull up their depth chart here. I love the defensive moves they've made. Alex Anzalone has been awesome. I have a little bit of concerns for the future just because of the Baker Mayfield contract. And when you look at quarterbacks, it's really easy as a fan to be like, oh, well, you know, I think you can win a Super Bowl with Baker Mayfield. You know, I think you can win a Super Bowl with Bryce Young. You know, I think you can win a Super Bowl with C.J. Stroud. And all these guys are coming up for contract extensions, and it's not as black and white as, you know, is Baker Mayfield the quarterback for us? Like, money plays the biggest role in all of these things. I think I saw, like, Colin Cowherd have a funny clip about this where he was like, you know, you give me six Diet Cokes for $5 and we've got a deal. But if you give me that same deal for $20, I'm buying a bottle of Prosecco, which is a nice little bottle of champagne. Baker Mayfield's contract's a really big deal. I don't really want to get into that in this video because we're just kind of talking about Tampa as they stand right now. The biggest thing that Tampa happened is, first off, Levante David retired, and then also Mike Evans is now a member of the San Francisco 49ers. Two things with that. Emeka Egbuka, first off, they picked Chris Godwin over Mike Evans, and it's not, once again, as black and white as that, where Mike Evans just kind of straight up didn't pick Tampa Bay. He just decided to pick San Francisco, and at this point in his career, I completely understand it. Now, the wide receiver room as it stands right now is Emeka Egbuka, Jalen McMillan, and Chris Godwin Jr. They also have Tez Johnson back there. They've got Cameron Johnson. They've got Dennis Houston. But Tez Johnson and Cameron Johnson had pretty decent impacts this past year. Tez more so. I don't mind this wide receiver room. Here's the issue with Tampa Bay. They were injured all last year. It doesn't matter if we're talking about the offense or if we're talking about the defense. We could talk about the offensive line. We could talk about the wide receiver room. We could talk about Mike Evans' injuries. We could talk about Chris Godwin's injuries. We could talk about Jalen McMillan's injuries. The whole team was freaking injured last season. It was actually crazy. If you followed along to the Detroit Lions from the last few years, it's pretty much that, but their whole team. Like, they just have not had that luck on their side with health. They got rid of some big pieces. Mike Evans, we just mentioned. Rashad White is no longer a part of this team. Very excited to see what Bucky Irving healthy looks like for a season. Hopefully, if we can get that. And then you got Kenneth Gainwell brought in from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Phenomenal value signing and just a really good signing because he's a jack of all trades. He can pass block. He can run block. Well, I guess run block wouldn't make sense, but he can catch, he can run the football. He had over 1,000 yards from scrimmage last year as a gadget player for Pittsburgh. He should be a fun piece for this offense. Defensively is really where, honestly, like I said, man, evaluating Tampa last year is really complicated because while they were dealing with defensive injuries, they were dealing with all these notable Tristan Wirfs, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Bucky Irving, like, all of their important offensive players, whenever it was in the 17-game season, like, too many of them were hurt. So the defense, as a result, it wasn't a good defense. They took a gamble Not even that big of a gamble on Hassan Reddick on edge. That didn't pan out. Kalijah Cansey, if I'm not mistaken, got injured in the first game. I've always said if you watch this or Will Upton or any of my TikToks or any of my content, I think Kalijah Cansey is a top 10 player at his position. Like, the dude's so good. Kalijah Cansey is a stud. The dude's a star. I think he could be a superstar, but he's at least a star. Injured in the first game. I mean, that sucked balls. I remember watching that live. I watch a lot of Bucks games live, especially if it's like a 4:30 game, because I've got a Bucks channel that I haven't really been posting on, but, you know, I live here in Tampa. Kind of a confusing thing that I don't want to get into, but I have a Bucks channel that I don't really post too much on because Will Upton's dying and I need to figure that out. I've also got other enterprises, but the point is this: Kalijah Cansey, in my opinion, is a star. They got rid of Jamel Dean. He's now a Pittsburgh Steeler. They needed linebacker help, and they bring in a couple, like, here are their additions so far: Christian Roseboom, Al-Kadim Muhammad, Ashawn Robinson, Alex Anzalone, and Miles Kilbrew. I look at, like, Roseboom, Alex Anzalone as A-plus signings. It's money. And now, obviously, Levante David is retired, which did really catch me by surprise. I didn't think Levante David was about to retire. I thought that would be maybe next year thing. Had a feeling he would retire as a Buccaneer, but I kind of felt like there was one more year that Levante David was going to give Tampa Bay, but he's not. So your linebacker room is Nick Jackson, Christian Roseboom, Servassier Dennis, Alex Anzalone, Chris Braswell, and Yaya Diaby. There's some talent there. I really like bringing in Alex Anzalone, especially since the loss of Levante David. They went for Al-Kadim Muhammad on the opposite edge of Kalijah, which I think Al-Kadim's a fine player. Most of his sacks were in a 3-game period. I anticipate Tampa to draft an edge player. I don't know where it's going to come in the draft, but I would anticipate and kind of hope it's going to be in the first 2 rounds. So you've got your defensive line with Ashawn Robinson, Al-Kadim Muhammad, Vita Vea, and Kalijah Cansey. The linebacker room we just mentioned. And as I said, Jamel Dean is now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. The cornerback room is as follows. Your cornerbacks are Zion McCollum, Benjamin Morrison, and Jacob Parrish. Your safeties are Tyke Smith and Antoine Winfield Jr. Now, if you're a Bucks fan, or if you're like a hardo NFL fan, you know the names Zion McCollum, Benjamin Morrison, and Jacob Parrish. Parrish and Morrison were rookies this past season, and they both produced. Injuries also decimated the secondary room for Tampa Bay. But Morrison out of Notre Dame, I'm a Notre Dame football fan, so it is a little bit biased. The dude's a gamer. Jacob Parrish is just as much of a gamer. There is a lot of hype and a lot of potential in that defensive back room for Tampa Bay right now. And obviously everyone knows who Antoine Winfield is. And then they've got Tyke Smith that your average casual probably has no idea who that Tyke Smith is. The dude's reliable. The dude is steady. The dude is getting better every single season. So I look at this Tampa Bay team, and the real big contingency is health. If Tampa can stay healthy, if Baker, the offensive line, the wide receiver room, the running back room can stay healthy, you will have an above 500 record. Defensively, if we anticipate the continual development of guys like Kalijah Cansey coming back healthy, Yaya Diaby, Zion McCollum, Tyke Smith, Benjamin Morrison, and Jacob Parrish, the defense should be significantly better, just because of health, but also roster improvement, whether it's free agents or just year-to-year development. I anticipate Tampa to come back huge this season. I do think the NFC South is going to be way more competitive than you would think. I don't really like doing records because I could see Tampa going 9-8 and winning the division. I could see Tampa going 9-8 and losing the division, and Carolina gets it, or even New Orleans gets it. Realistically, we're probably looking at another around 10-7 season for Tampa Bay. The NFC South isn't quite there yet, so 10-7 could easily win you the division. You're going to be in the hunt for the division. And I expect more or less of what you probably would have saw last year if this team just stayed healthy, where you see a very competitive team. They have some upsets. They have some bad losses. But for the most part, they're kind of stuck in above averageness. Now, hopefully, Baker Mayfield, in a big, looming contract extension coming, hopefully he can throw together a really good season. Because at the end of the day, your quarterback is, it's obviously the most important position in football, but If Baker doesn't give you a good season, Tampa's not going far. If Baker gives you a good season, Tampa is going far. But this is one of those squads, as we wrap this video up, that I wouldn't count out. Would definitely not count out Tampa Bay. I wouldn't pick them to win a Super Bowl, but I would pick them to win the division and upset, a Philadelphia or a Dallas or a Chicago or a Green Bay or a Detroit or one of those teams because Tampa wins the division in his home field. Hopefully this team can go far. We still have a long offseason ahead of us. But that's it for today. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know any of your guys' thoughts. I've really liked the results from these videos, even if they're not getting too many views. I don't want to force or pressure anybody to comment, but I really want you guys to know me and get to know me. And I also do want to get to know you guys because I do read every single comment, especially on Whopped and All. We're getting, at best a comment a day. But I want to hear from you guys, and I don't mean it in the sense of like hit the like button, hit that sub button, and drop a comment for the algorithm. Like, Will Upton's getting like 100, or it's getting like 1,000 views. These videos are getting 20 views. Like, these obviously don't make any money. I'm not even monetized. That was even a stupid thing to say. I get so many comments from people that usually it ends up being like a YouTuber that just kind of gave up. Like, I get so many comments from people saying, like, wow, like, so, you need to pay your bills or, something like that. This is clickbait to pay your bills. And it's like, you think these videos are making money? You're crazy. I just love the game. And I want to hear from you guys. But it's not in a pressure way because I know most people don't comment on videos. I know most people don't like videos. They don't subscribe even to their favorite YouTubers. Like, I totally understand it. But if you are down for it, I would love to hear from you. Yeah, I've got a Twitter, an Instagram, a comment section, an email if you can find it. I would love to hear from you guys. Thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you guys in the next couple of days at worst. Goodbye.